September 1st regular school board meeting. If you are so inclined, please join us for the invocation and pledge.
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a recognition tonight. Mr. Prantha is making his way up with tonight's honoree, and before he speaks, I'll just say a few words. Oftentimes in the school system, we think about teachers and the hard work that teachers and administrators do. Ms. McClendon is a great representative of the people who are not necessarily a teacher, but they still make that work happen. I see Mr. West here and some other representatives of our HESPA and the support group personnel, that it takes everyone. It takes secretaries, bookkeepers, bus drivers, custodians that also make our schools happen. If you don't believe that, try running your school without that group for a while and see how it goes. And it doesn't go well. So Ms. McClendon has been with us for 38 years. That's a remarkable. To have in a day and age when that is a really rare thing to happen. We're honored that Ms. McClendon chose her 38 years to be here with Hendry County Schools. She's done a litany of different things throughout the school system, secretary, bookkeeper, and the list goes on and on. But those of you who work in the schools, you know very well that it takes people like that. They wind up doing some of everything. And so she's been the smiling face for students and parents and teachers for many years. And we're very proud that she was with us. So I'll stop there and I'll let Mr. Prantha take over.
Thank you. Mr. Summers couldn't be here tonight. Kind of tag team in a senior parent event, so I'm grateful to have a chance to speak on your behalf. As Mr. Swindle said, 38 years is a long time to be a Tiger. It's going to be hard to come into the office and not see your pretty smile every morning. You have been in many roles, but for me personally, as a first-time administrator coming into the dean's office, trying to get my head above water, the biggest impact that you had in the beginning was just listening to the conversations that you would have with students as they came into the dean's office, and the way your voice was able to calm them down, and those common sense conversations was something that stuck with me over all of these years, and I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate you. We're going to miss you. Thank you.
It gives me great pride to present this plaque, presented to Barbara McClendon, Secretary Bookkeeper at Williston High School, in appreciation for 38 years of faithful service to the Hendry County Schools. Thank you very much. Happy retirement.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Superintendent, do we have any further recognitions this evening?
Yes, we do have some further recognition this evening. For those of you who were with us at the previous meeting in LaBelle, you noticed that we did some recognition of some absolutely wonderful, brilliant, beautiful, smart, and a ton of other great adjectives that describe our students in Hendry County Schools. I made the comment there, and I'll make it again, that our students in Hendry County and LaBelle and Clewiston are as smart as kids anywhere. And we're honored to have the high-achieving students tonight that are from 4 different schools, 3 elementaries and 1 middle school. So, with no further ado, what we're going to do is bring them in school by school, just because we couldn't fit everyone all into one place at one time. The first presentation is going to be from Central Elementary School, and Ms. Marquez is going to come forward and bring her students. and give out her plaques, and then we'll stand and picture with them. Ms. Marquez?
Perfect. So tonight, Central is so proud to recognize our students who excelled and scored multiple 5s on the 2021-2022 FSA assessment. So not 1 5, multiple 5s. These students have worked very hard, and we are continuing to push them to do their very best, even if they've left us and have gone on to the middle school. We would like to also thank their parents for their continued support. So with no further ado, we have our 3rd graders who scored a 5 on ELA and math last year. When I call your name, you guys can come to the front. Daniel Garcia.
There you go.
So let's see, next we have Alejandro Rodriguez. Robert Edmonds. And our last 3rd grader, Jeremiah Escobar. Yes. All right, look here. 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. So now we have our 4th graders. Oh, you guys can stay over here. Sorry, you guys can stay if you want. We can do everything.
Yeah, we'll get a picture. Yeah, big.
A big picture at the end. All right. Next, we have our 4th grader. We have Aiden Camanos. Aiden also scored a perfect 10 on his writing. Next for 4th grade, we have Miss Blair Stone. All right, for 5th grade, she's left us. We miss her so much. We have Angela De Santiago. We also have one more, Celine Dawson, and she couldn't join us tonight. So let's give another round of applause. Perfect. We're so proud of you and the staff of
Congratulations, everyone. Great work. Now, all of you parents and students are welcome to stay, but we're going to switch. But if you want to go, this will be the time to come to your central. Come on in, East Side. Here's, you see yours there?
What were you doing when you were already?
So, is that, you got everyone in?
See?
Okay. So our next presentation is going to be from East Side Elementary. Tonight we have Ms. Denise Gibson, principal, here to present to these. Again, we have a group of just wonderful, talented, brilliant students from East Side representing Hendry County Schools, and we're so very proud of all of you. So I'll let Ms. Gibson take it from here.
So tonight we're here to recognize two students who did an excellent job last year on their FSA, but also through their time at Eastside. Gavin Smith scored a 5 in ELA, in math, and in science last year.
You can stand here. in front.
stand right
Yeah. We'll do a picture of both of them.
The next award is for a now 4th grade student who was a 3rd grader last year who scored a 5 in both ELA and math, Joanna Ramirez.
Awesome. Let them stand with you. Just got one here, right?
Look at this one and Tracy.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And we'll let them do the same. We'll give them a minute to switch in and out. And there's a group coming in from West Side, I believe, next. Got all the West Side Warriors coming in?
Yes.
All right. You good? Did they coming on in? Yeah, y'all come on in. So, is that everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so next board, this is the wonderful, beautiful, great, talented, brilliant group from the West Side Warriors. And tonight, Ms. Taylor Massey is going to be making the presentations. Ms. Massey?
Yes. So at first, we have two students that we're going to recognize. I'd like to read a little bit about each of them, if I could have just a minute of your time. So we're going to recognize first Emma Davis. She was a 5th grader last year at Westside, and she's an exceptional student. Emma loves math, and her favorite teacher, who she also calls her second mom, Miss Holly Sweet. Emma has participated in Tropicana speech contests and loves to share her passions. She's also an active member of 4-H, and we miss her tremendously. She was a great student and asset to our tribe, and so we're just so proud of Emma, and if we could give her a round of applause.
Stay up front, come right up front here.
All right, and then Emma, if you can come right here and just wait right there.
Yeah.
The second student is Antonella, and if the board doesn't mind, Mom only speaks Spanish, so I'd like to call Miss Penna up to translate what I say. Come on, Miss Penna. Antonella is an exceptional student who loves to read.
Antonella es una estudiante excepcional que le fascina leer.
She is quite often the top point earner at Westside.
Es la niña que más puntos tiene en toda la escuela de la Westside.
She loves to paint and journal.
Le encanta dibujar y escribir en su libreta.
And she thinks that every kid should because they're healthy habits.
Y ella cree que todos los estudiantes deberían hacer lo mismo que ella porque es un hábito muy saludable.
She's also one of the most kind and polite students at
Y es una de
Westside.
las niñas más, sorry, I lost it. Más dulce que tenemos en la Westside Elementary.
We are so proud of you, Antonella.
Estamos muy orgullosos de ti.
Thank you. Congratulations, ladies. Y'all did awesome. Y'all are welcome to stay, but we have more presentations, and so if y'all want to go, this would be the time that y'all can ease out if you would like, because Clouston Middle School is going to be coming in next. So come on in, Clouston Middle School. Thank you, ladies. Great job. Yeah.
Ya se pueden ir. No, de nada, gracias a ustedes.
Yeah, because your plaques are right here, so you can bring them up, and then we'll, just tell me when they're all in, and I'll get you started.
You're all in.
That's it?
That's it.
You got a bunch more plaques than you do.
Well,
Okay.
they get 2 each.
Oh, so we'll let the mommy sit down, then we'll get going. And so our last presentation tonight is going to be Clewiston Middle School, and we're very proud of our middle school students, just like we are the others. We know they're brilliant, they do a great job, and we're honored that they're here to be recognized for their hard work tonight. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Principal Tina Kelly.
Thank you guys for being here tonight, and I have 2 awesome gentlemen with me tonight. We actually had 3 who had a perfect score, 1 couldn't be here. So I'm just going to go ahead and say his name because he worked really hard. Mr. Tony Zhu had a perfect score on the science test. He had a perfect score on the science test, which is quite phenomenal in 8th grade. And then we have Mr. Xavier Palatolan. He had a perfect score on the civics EOC. Okay, you can both of these. Congratulations, stay in here, okay? And then last but not least, we have Mr. Isaiah Kirk here. Once again, perfect score on civics. We're very proud of you guys here. And look at smile.
And get them together.
Where do you want me to sit?
Zach.
Come on, Isaac. Come on, come on, brother. Because you had a perfect score last year too.
No.
His brother had a perfect score last year too.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Very nice.
Yeah. That does conclude the presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Superintendent, do we have any citizen comment on agenda items?
We do have one citizen comment card at this time. If any of you come in late and didn't get one, if you need to fill one out, please do so now. The only one we have at this point is Mr. Rolly Gonzalez.
And Mr. Gonzalez, when you come up, if you'll state your name, the city you reside in, and remember you have a 3-minute uninterrupted time limit.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
My name is Rolly Gonzalez. I've only been to one school board meeting, and I'm sorry, Ms. Nelson, if I take an extra minute, I will ask for the board planning.
Please state your city that you live in.
My name is Rolly Gonzalez. I live in the city of Clewiston.
Thank you.
Came here 2.5 years ago, and I got myself very involved, and I ruffled a lot of feathers to get a lot of answers. I was told, Rolly, don't do that. Don't do that because you may not like what you're going to hear. That's why I'm running right now in the city. But going back to the old business, I used to be on the board of Central County, okay? And I admire all you guys for being on the board. Nowadays, to run and be on a board, wow, it's very hard, especially with social media. And like the Reverend says, let's pray about it. You know, tonight you guys are most probably going to be making a board resolution protecting the corporate entity of the board. I have 3 kids at home. I came from Miami, and I have spoken to many teachers, and I'm all over the place. And the school board has made a mockery of themselves. And you guys are all super educated. Our kids are at home watching every single detail that you guys speak about. Their parents are reiterating what you all are doing. We have great teachers, great educators. And I would really hate for students and teachers to look at you all as dictators. I'm gonna make it brief. Elections is next week. Final elections is next week. If you can hold off on that old business, making a resolution today, it's not gonna help. I guarantee you it's not gonna help. I love every single one of you guys, and I pray that you guys make great decisions. But let the community make a decision. Whether it's this lady comes back on the board, go ahead and make it. Make what's best for the board. Make what's best for the city. If it's her opponent, great, we move on. I'm not here for anybody. I don't agree in a lot of things that are being done. But our kids, our future, are looking at this. We're leaving a liability for them. The way we act today is going to reflect them in the future. If we want them to be better, I need
Thank
them
you,
to be
that's
better.
time.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Have a great day.
Before we begin with consent agenda, are there any items that any board member would like moved down to action items?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if you wouldn't mind, consent item A, minutes, B, personnel recommendations, and H, revision to the 2022-23 Code of Student Conduct, please.
Okay, we're going to move minutes down to action item C. Okay, we're going to hold that, Ms. Busen. We have a late turned in citizen comment. I'm sorry. Ashley, I'm going to butcher it. Is it
Smith.
Smith? Okay, I'm sorry.
I wrote it as fast as I could.
So if you would state your name and the city you reside in, and remember you have a 3-minute time limit.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name's Ashley Smith, and I live in the city of Williston. Okay. I made a point to look at Hendry County Schools website before coming today. And on the front landing page, the very first statement for anyone to read is Hendry County School District, dedicated to excellence in education. On October 26th, I sent a letter to this board describing 3 different incidences that occurred while my son was a student at Eastside Elementary School, under the direction of Denise Gibson, where my son was basically what I can only describe as being bullied by administration and staff. He was followed into a restroom by 2 male staff members, humiliated in front of his peers, and on 2 separate occasions excluded from school events that he had more than earned every right to be a part of. However, the only school board member to even acknowledge receipt of my letter was Ms. Busen. Although my son is no longer a Hendry County school student, his experiences should not be swept under the rug and simply dismissed. I'm speaking to every parent with a child in the Hendry County school system. Behavioral-wise and academically speaking, Gavin was one of Hendry County School's best and brightest students. He was on the National Elementary Honor Society for 2 years, maintained a 4.0 GPA, and scored all 5s on his FSA test. And these are just a few of his outstanding accomplishments. If this is not the academic excellence you are dedicated to, then what is? It is my prediction that Hendry County School District will continue to lose their best students to private or alternate schools if the school board does not stand up and fight for their students. I would also like to acknowledge that in September, Gavin received an invitation to the October 4th school board meeting to congratulate him for scoring all 5s on his FSA test. However, shortly after receiving this invitation, Ms. Gibson called and informed me that it was canceled and would be rescheduled to a later date. At 12:21 p.m. today, I was notified that he would be congratulated at tonight's meeting. So I guess it's better late than never, I suppose, but I'm glad that he was at least allowed to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to consent agenda. So Ms. Busen, you would like action, or consent agenda item A, B, and H moved down to action items C, D, and E?
Correct.
Okay, anything else?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to recognize items E and F. The memorandum of understanding for the Hendry County Winn-Dixie Pharmacy and for the Hendry County Florida Department of Health. These are opportunities that are being presented for training for our kids for vocational development, and sometimes some of our agenda gets swept away because we know, but not all the time. The community knows, and I want to thank the Winn-Dixie Pharmacy and the Florida Department of Health for helping our students learn. Thank you.
Very nice. Okay, so Mr. Superintendent, do I have a recommendation for the consent agenda?
Yes, I recommend approval of the balance of the consent agenda.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Reverend Brown and a second by Ms. Beeson. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda passes. Action items. Action item A, new allocation, adult education navigator. Mr. Superintendent, do I have a recommendation?
I recommend approval of action item A, the new allocation of an adult education navigator.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bassman and a second by Ms. Beeson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Action item A passes 5-0. Action item B, new allocation, CDL Class A instructor. Mr. Superintendent, do I have your recommendation?
Yep, once again, this is evidence that Mr. Lukenhouse has got it going on. That one pretty much speaks for itself, but he is expanding into the world of CDL training. He has already secured a semi-donation as well as a semi-trailer donation, and he is located an instructor, and so the Henry County Adult School will begin CDL training, a much-needed training and certification that will yield benefits for years to come. So kudos to him for the hard work and making it all happen. And therefore, I recommend approval of action item B, a new allocation for a CDL Class A instructor.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bassman and a second by Reverend Brown. Any further discussion?
Well, so I'm excited about
I am
this.
too.
Okay.
Me too.
Yes. Thank you, thank
Fired up.
you,
I'm
thank you.
gonna ride in the truck, and I want to drive the truck. I want to ride first.
You'll maybe second.
Come on, man.
Wait a minute, I think I
We'll
should
flip
be
a
first.
coin over later.
No, but thank you. I know it's a lot of hard work and it's so very needed. Awesome. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Welcome to CDL Class A instructor. All right. New action item C, minutes from the consent agenda from October 18th. Mr. Superintendent, do I have a recommendation?
I recommend approval of the minutes from the October 18th, 2022 meeting.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Reverend Brown and a second by Mr. Asplin. Discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think the minutes, they are missing one thing, and that is they do not reflect the request to document an administrative suspension and the continued employment during the suspension. And then, as reflected in board member business, I fundamentally reject the premise that, as stated here, that third grade students are exploited by my visit to to East Side.
Any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Nay.
Okay, we have a 4-1 with Houston dissenting. And now moving on to new action item D, personnel recommendations. Do I have a recommendation, Mr. Superintendent?
So I recommend approval of action item D,
D.
which would be personnel recommendations as presented.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bassman and a second by Mrs. Houston. Discussion?
Madam Chair, my concern with this personnel recommendation is that we're rolling into the second month without any official personnel documentation reflecting employment action and documentation of suspended administration. There's no paper trail on it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
4-1 motion. Moving on to action item E, revision to the 2022-23 student code of conduct. Mr. Superintendent, do I have the recommendation?
Yes, I recommend approval of action item E, the revision to the 2022-23 student code of conduct as presented.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion by Mr. Vasquez and a second by Mr. Sammervite. Discussion?
How to make the changes, any major changes?
It was only one minor change on some wording on page 36, I think it was. It was on there. It was the it was highlighted. There was two different versions. One was a red line version. The other one was a clean version that you have.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I can take one and pass it down. I'd like the board attorney to put her eyes on this so we can walk it out together. So this is a part of, like sworn testimony speaking about, the revision to the code of conduct, as I understand it, is acknowledgement that the code of conduct was deficient in relaying the fact that corporal punishment was banned. And so when you look at that first page, that is from sworn commentary about it wasn't effectively disseminated, and does changing the notice. And so what you're going to see on the back also is, in these next two pages, are documents that were individually printed that permit what are discipline options that are not a part of the previous code of conduct or the proposed code of conduct. And is there something that we can add to that to prevent these from being used to document discipline and to use focus solely?
Restate the question.
So my question is okay, there's a lot of questions here. So the first question is from Counselor Shattuck. Is adopting the proposed change to the Code of Student Conduct in some way validating the statement that it wasn't sufficient to begin with?
Thank you, through the chairwoman to members of the board. So what happened was we'd actually had it in the last version of the Code of Conduct that, per our policy 5600, I believe is the number, that the board does not have corporal punishment. And it was just an accident that it was not in the latest version. You just have different drafts going around, and somehow they had a draft where it was not incorporated, and that's why it was being brought back at this meeting with that change to bring it back. So it was actually in the previous draft. But regardless of the incorporation in the Code of Conduct, it has been in Board Policy 5600. As you all know, as the policymakers, we do advertisements in the paper when you adopt policies. They're on your website. They're publicly adopted. So there is, notice and publication of your policies as well.
All right, is there something, a suggested policy change that absolutely makes all of our code of conduct issues, our discipline issues, to be forced to go through and have a penalty for not going through focus? Because, these are some documents that, I see that have floated around schools, that the schools are having printed themselves, where they do paper documentation of discipline, and it doesn't always make it to focus. And I think that is shortchanging students who may need MTSS, and it's, not an accurate reflection of what's going on. And if we're getting rid of some of these discipline referrals, and not appropriately addressing them, then no wonder teachers are having frustrations in classrooms if the needs aren't being effectively met, and they're not going to be effectively met if you don't have the appropriate documentation. And so that is, my thought on proposed policy revision that would, or even a standalone policy that would support the proper and appropriate implementation of the code of conduct. But as it stands, I mean, to the original, if it doesn't have any negative impact, then I don't really have any objection to the revision.
So any further questions or concerns? Then, all in favor of approving the change?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, changes, motion carries. That's it for advertising. So moving on to old business. Old business, item A, school board resolution protecting the corporate entity of the board. Superintendent, do I have a recommendation on said resolution?
Yes, this is old business from last meeting. This is a resolution that was presented to you, and you all had asked to go further and to get some further information from that. And if you have further questions that we have, Ms. Nelson has dug into that deeper. My recommendation tonight is for you to actively accept the motion and approve the resolution as presented in the agenda, as printed.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Vasquez and a second by Mr. Sammerdine. So I'm going to start discussion on this. I want to let the public be aware that Andrea Messina, the president of the Florida School Boards Association, she contacted me the morning after our last school board meeting to discuss her recommendation to make this resolution at this meeting. It will show that we, the other members of the Hendry County School Board, do not support the actions regarding policy violations by one board member named Ms. Busen in the resolution, currently or in any possible future situations. Given that we have many very upset parents, employees, and citizens currently, we want to distance the rest of the board from such actions or behaviors. In an effort to maintain transparency, the board wants documentation showing that it does not condone policy violations by a single board member and that we are taking a clear stance for the public to be made aware. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
does anybody want to say anything else?
Who wrote that? I'm sorry.
That was from Andrea Messina. She's the president of the FSBA, Florida School Boards Association.
That's
She
right.
reached out to me.
That's what I had asked for, was something.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I had asked the attorney for some legal side of things there at our last meeting. I did receive a phone call or a voicemail stating that you were working on that as requested. So what did you come up with?
Yes, thank you for your question, Mr. Basquin, and through the chair and to the members of the board. So I was asked the specific legal question, does the board need to adopt this in order to protect itself from liability? And I could not find any liability that would attach to the board, whether you adopt it or not. So my answer to that question is no, I don't think the board needs to adopt it to protect themselves from liability. I understand that Ms. Messina has given perhaps different advice. I do understand that when I read the resolution, it would appear that what the resolution is actually saying is that the board has adopted certain policies and that it, expects the district, including its own members, to abide by those policies and doesn't endorse any violation of them. There's no penalty that goes along with the resolution, so my stance is that you don't need to, you do not need to adopt it to protect yourself from liability. If you did adopt it, it would be for the purpose of just the board expressing that they are, upholding these policies that are mentioned, that they believe have perhaps been violated, and that they do not endorse any violation of their policies. Thanks.
And that is how Ms. Messina, she presented it. It wasn't a matter of legal, it was just to be transparent and.
You stated we are not in agreement with breaking board policy. Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Any further?
I have it. So, let's just take one and pass it down, and please make sure the board attorney gets that copy. So I was hoping not to have to drag all of this out. Pardon me? So, I think it's very unfortunate that this fight, and a political fight, has been brought into the boardroom. This is the sacred time we should be doing the business of our district and not, I'm going to go through this with you all, guys. So we're going to, if you're going to drag me out here, we're going to go through this sheet by sheet. And drag a campaign and a political, what occurred last Tuesday was nothing more than very concerted political theater. And it started, I want to give you guys some context and some reference to how the situation unfolded last Tuesday, and that was with me, as Mr. Green said, there was a verbal, pretty one-sided issue at a local business. And so I sent an email, what you see right here. I'm making a complaint about that. And then I included, I didn't even tell on before, about these hideous things that he was posting on a public Facebook page about me. And not only was it, it's redundant to the things that he got up and said without any proof. He just made these just absurd statements. Calling my family and friends racist, saying my husband lost his job, questioning how my kids, go to school, saying that I love the N-word, and we gave him like so many opportunities to say, put his evidence up, put it right there, and he didn't. He refused. But then, when I report that, as him being a football coach and a representative of the school district, what I get instead is a visit and getting verbally attacked in a school board meeting. And in that school board meeting, if you turn to the second tab, it's like a blue tab, we walk past a pledge of civility. And it says, we will be respectful of one another even when we disagree. We will direct all comments to the issues. We will avoid personal attacks. And Chair Nelson permitted an additional time for public speaker to attack, accuse, and slander private citizens in an unprecedented and negligent use of authority.
He was interrupted multiple times, Ms. Beeson. That's why I extended his.
You're interrupting me. So, you're interrupting me. Thank you. It wasn't, if it's directed at me, then I'm an elected official. I go and knock on people's doors every 4 years and beg for this privilege. But the private citizens don't deserve that. And you gave a platform to slander private citizens.
Well, sorry, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as a citizen who had the right to speak, and you attacked
You
that.
completely ignored the Pledge of Civility, and you allowed this man to attack private citizens. So
Then, what unfolded was nothing short of political theater before an audience of my opponent's family and friends. And as he stated before, there were 3 previous school board meetings in which he appeared. 2, he wanted policy exceptions. 1, to operate his personal business on a taxpayer campus, without complying with a facilities use agreement and insurance requirements. And then he wanted us to hold harmless a policy violation involving corporal punishment. And then he wanted to demand my political persecution for giving shirts to private school 3rd graders. And so I'm going to ask you to flip to the yellow tab. And I want you to think, as a candidate, as a school board member, as a colleague here, how would you feel in any of your elections that you ever faced that this is what you had to look at every single day? Is that fair? But it's an appropriate illustration of the political motivation. And I'm cautious, I caution you to consider any resolution and the intention of any resolution being brought forward by him. And then flip to the red tab where it shows you the actual pictures, these scandalous, horrible t-shirt gate pictures. And the pictures of the kids wearing the shirts is at Clewiston Christian School. And Clewiston Christian School is not governed by Hendry County School Board policy. And instead of not including the pictures of these children in this evidence brought forward from the superintendent, he used technology that he could have used to completely remove these kids' pictures and not drag that school into the middle of this. Instead, he used it to distort the images to fit Mr. Green's angry black parent narrative, because no child in that picture has a black parent. So I think that's pretty awful that we go and drag a different school into it. And then he wants to add some policies in here and selectively highlight them. I didn't print those out in this packet. You have those copies on your iPads. And what I mean by selective highlighting is he gets down to, he only wants to highlight the things that he thinks are appropriate to his narrative, but he sure never got down to the part about voting conflicts, where it says a board member shall not vote in any official capacity or any member which in or his or her special gain or loss, or the special gain or loss of a principal by whom he or she is retained, or to the parent organization or subsidiary of a corporate principal by which he or she is retained, or to the special gain or loss of a relative or business associate. You just heard from Molly, or Molly Shattuck, our counselor, that a vote on this, even bringing this forward, is unnecessary and obviously clearly, and this is not her words, but mine, clearly political in nature. And so I have questions on the ground rules on this resolution. And I'm able, as a parliamentarian, will I be able to vote on this?
Yes, thank you for that question. So I would say that you would be able to vote on this, yes.
Okay. Is it a conflict of interest for board members with children employed by my opponent's daughter directly? Because you also have to understand the employment web is that it comes down, all of your recommendations come down from the superintendent. Those recommendations come from the school administration to superintendent. So is it a conflict of interest for board members with children employed by my daughter's opponent to vote on this matter?
No, I don't think that would be a conflict of interest. Generally, the conflict of interest has more to do with things that inure to your financial gain or those of, a relative.
Okay, and just to clarify, can a board members whose spouse financially donated to my opponent's campaign still vote on this?
Yes, I believe that they could. Again, I don't know that voting on this really says more than that you are trying to support your policy, since there's no penalty or other action associated with voting on it.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted some clarification on that. Well, let's just keep these policies close. So as we move forward, I looked at the resolution, the wording of the resolution. And frankly, I don't know about you other four, but I felt really ambushed by this. It was obvious that the board attorney was also ambushed. The superintendent made the claim to have the Florida School Board Association legal advisement, but when I contacted Andrea Messina the next morning, Andrea Messina said her advice to Mr. Swindle, who contacted her, was that he needed to contact Attorney Shattuck. And then when Counselor Shattuck says, when pushed for a knee-jerk reaction on just what she's seeing before her, states that her legal interpretation is that a candidate's campaign doesn't create legal liability for the board, and that it's an unnecessary resolution. Superintendent Swindle claims that he no longer trusts her legal advice and comments that this is going to be addressed after the election. And Superintendent Swindle doesn't even have the authority to handle it after an election. That is the authority of the board. So I say that prefacing as I'm looking at this resolution. And it says, whereas the corporate entity of the Hendry County School Board finds it necessary, the word necessary, to take affirmative action to disavow such post statements and representations. Necessary. Well, we learned it's not necessary. And then it says, be it therefore resolved that the Hendry County School Board does not approve of, condone, affirm, or ratify statements, actions, conduct, or egregious unethical actions. Well, the last time I checked, the person, the entity that judges egregious ethical actions of elected officials is the Florida Commission on Ethics. And I tell you what, I would take my chances in front of them and I think that would be a more fair way of due process on this than school boards making of peers led by a compromised superintendent who is making it a politically motivated issue 1 week before an election. And so as we further read on, it says, be it further resolved that the intent of this resolution is only to disavow statements, representations, actions, or other conduct of any individual board member who has unethically used their elected position in order to obtain personal political gain. This resolution is not intended to give credence to any complaint or allegation made. And so when you think about that, this right here is unprecedented, and this is Pandora's box. And you need to think real long and real hard before you're voting on this. If anyone here on this board may have not recused themselves from voting on a recommendation to employ a first-degree relative or failed to file a Form 8B, because this whole entire board, probably with the exception of Mr. Samerdike, should understand that because they were copied on those emails when it was going down with Mr. McKinley about those ethics issues. So think long and hard about that one. And then, so after this resolution, I want to thank Reverend Brown. I want to thank Mr. Samerdike for protecting my ability to have some sort of due process. That video, the last time I checked, I didn't have the heart to check in a few days, but it had 4.5 thousand views. 4.5 thousand views. And so when I saw this taking off online, I said, I deserve, if we were going to put this on a public platform, I deserve a voice there too, if we're going to let these people excorporate me on the internet. And so I started posting things that I have a right to post. And you know what? They were all deleted. And I know how snaky it is. So when I wrote it, I put the first one in, and it went away. I took the picture. And then I posted it again, and then it went away. And that's what the purple tab is me being censored. Censorship at the tax dollar funded censorship of an elected official. But you know what? I'm trying to take the high road with folks. And I knew No. Look, I mean, I'm telling you, look at the abundance and the giggles that you're hearing are from predictable players in this whole situation. And so I thought about it for a couple of days. I actually reached out to Andrew and Mrs. Sina. We walked through the scenario of where my interpretation of, trying to be the coolest presenter that the third graders saw got sideways. And I said, let's set the example, let's set the tone here, and accept responsibility for a shortcoming and a mistake. Maybe that'll inspire others to do that. And so I did, and I made a public statement to that fact. And I did accept full responsibility for it because I knew at the end of the day when I looked at it, I was blind to it in the minute and when it was happening. But when I stepped back and tried to look at other people's perspective, I could see the rub there. And so, I tried to do the responsible thing there and say, I accept responsibility. You don't have to disavow me because I realize what I see the rub. So, I did that. Because I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought that was leadership and that was setting the tone. And then, when it popped up on the agenda again, I reached out to Molly Shattuck, Counselor Shattuck. And again, the blue tab here is where it says her legal advice is I do not see a legal liability that would attach to the board if it does not pass the resolution. The purpose of the resolution appears to be for the board to vocalize the support for its own policies and its opposition to any violations of its policies. Now, are we willing to disavow our own sins and our own policy violations? Or is it just mine? And if you need some examples, and I think you guys have been, Reverend Brown, he gets on me all the time. He said, I have a good heart, but I get spicy when I get upset about a situation. And he has seen some spicy interactions when I feel like there's selective policy enforcement, because selective policy enforcement, as we're learning now through litigation, creates liabilities. And what I'm talking about is actual litigation, not threatened or assumed. And so I'm showing 3 different situations right here in this yellow tab that are really and truly uses of district resources to engage in an election. And the first one is a Clewiston club sharing candidate information on there. Whoop, sorry, knocked my glasses right off. The second one is a school liking my opponent's reacting to with their school account to my opponent's social media page. And the third one was my favorite, and it was a text message sent by our superintendent to a District 4 constituent after last meeting in which he is campaigning for my opponent. And the superintendent actually receives a taxpayer-funded supplement for the phone he uses. So, I just really think that this is not the road that he wants to lead anybody down. And when that person did show me that text message, I don't believe anybody. I said, let me see the phone number in there. You're not going to put somebody's fake number there and get me out here on a limb. And no, it was. And that number is, he does receive a taxpayer-funded supplement for that. So that is a true use of not only an abuse of power, but a use of district resources for which he is pointing the finger. And I'm willing, I've already done what I felt was right to accept responsibility for it. I feel like any action from this point going forward is politically motivated. It's petty, it's hypocritical, and I'm not going to sit there and take it on the chin. Everybody will be held to the same standards that they're asking to hold me, y'all are asking to hold me to tonight. So I'm sorry once again to the constituency and to the people in the room, and some of the people in the room, and to the kids, and to the major issues that our district is facing, that the superintendent doesn't find appropriate or necessary to put on an agenda, but this is the priority, and it's just really sad, and I apologize for such a gross misuse of a public meeting. And that concludes my comments.
Any further discussion?
A whole lot of years ago, I was put up here to make decisions that would affect the children of Henry County. Those policies and everything that would allow the teachers to be treated fairly and provide for the education of each and every child, regardless to their race, creed, or color. It's been a long journey, and it's been tough because we've had a difficult time to deal with. And I've enjoyed and will continue to enjoy dealing with issues dealing with the children and the school system. By virtue of being Pastor Brown, I can't detach myself from who I am. And even though I don't think that there are any innocent parties in what we're discussing, by virtue of who I am and what I do, I have to abstain from voting because I don't think there are innocent people who are sinless or who have not done anything in this room. So I would refrain myself from voting on this issue. I do believe that we have been damaged as a board. I'm not aware of everything that happens outside outside this room. I think the media, what do they call it? Social media has been not good for us. And last thing I'll say, that there's something, I forget the actual pronunciation of the word, but it's a German word that's Schadenfreude or something like that. That means that people like to see things negative and things going wrong, and so they bask in that. There are a lot of people within this county are looking and wanting to see something that's horrible, and so they can gloat in that. I would not take part in giving them what they want. So I'm going to abstain from voting on this issue.
Can I speak to that briefly? Just from a legal perspective, board members have to vote unless there's a conflict of interest. But something that you could do is make a motion to postpone this matter indefinitely or table it indefinitely or something to that effect if you don't want the matter to move forward, which would require, a motion and a second and is debatable. But I would just caution from abstaining to vote on a matter where you don't have a conflict of interest, if that makes sense. Yes, you can vote yay or nay. Or like I said, you could even make some sort of motion if you wanted to just table the matter or something to that effect. Yeah, you could do any of those things.
I don't want to do something the board wants to do, but
I'll make the motion, we table this.
I second.
Any further discussion? I mean, it's out there. It's public now.
So what I have is that there's a motion to table by Mr. Samerdijk and a second by Mr. Brown. You can have discussion now. Something that you can do is you can set forth a time that you want to reconsider it, or you could table it indefinitely. So right now it's just up for discussion, and would ultimately you would need to vote on that motion.
Is there a date, time limit you want to put on the next meeting?
Well, the next meeting will be after the election. And I want to say, it's really hard to do this, and I think Ms. Newsom made an error in judgment. no question in my mind that when she went into that classroom, that ethically that was wrong. I think what happened is we got carried away in that motion, and I read that letter, the grievousness of the situation and stuff like that. I think we could have toned down some of that rhetoric a little bit. I think she made a mistake, no question. I think she should have gone with Mia Pope up on this right away, but she chose not to. She chose to argue this thing to the nth degree, to where everybody's saying, when is there enough? And that's my feeling on that it could have been handled much quicker. It should have been handled better. It reflects so poorly on this board tonight. It just saddens me greatly. I never expected anything like this. But my motion is the next board meeting.
What about entertaining the discussion of creating a resolution that does not necessarily mean one board member specifically, but so that the public knows transparently that none of us agree with policy violation? It's a thought.
Y'all better be real careful about the policy violations. There are ethical issues that are going to come forward on that one. I mean, this is something that has this is something politically motivated. I mean, if it's so ethically egregious, put it in front of the Florida Commission on Ethics. Let's go. Fine.
Are we tabling indefinitely or until next meeting? I need a consensus from the board.
File it.
Well, I think he already said to the next meeting.
Next
Mr.
meeting.
Chairman,
Well,
I made a
the
motion for
next
next meeting. That's what he said.
Is that okay? So we're going to table it until the next meeting?
Well, wait, that's the meeting
After the election.
after the election, but it's also the meeting when we re-elect or reappoint. Why don't we take it back to another meeting? I hate to have all that happen at the same time.
Nick, you said
The meeting after that, I don't want to be appointing school board members at the same meeting we're trying to vote on.
So you're making a motion that we're going to table this?
Until January, or until December, the December meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second by Mr. Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to table the resolution until the first meeting in December. That would be December 6th is the date on that. All right. Board member business. Ms. Busen, do you have anything else?
Should I? No, I'm gonna let you slide in. I said all I had to.
Yeah, just something really quick. I can't tell people how to vote, but in a week, there's the election for the half-cent tax. Our county, our schools are some of the poorest schools in the state. Economically, we're number 2 of the 67 counties in income per family. Now, we're an agricultural community. We don't have high rises on the coast. All of our neighbors have high rises on the coast that generates millions of dollars of ad valorem tax for the schools, and hardly any children in those high-rise apartments. Here, we tend to have a lot of wonderful children. We saw some tonight. And what happens is that half-cent tax can help improve the lives of our children and the education of our children. I'm not telling you how to vote. I just want you to think about it. Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez?
I'm good with that.
I do have one thing, and Ms. Busen, I'm not trying to continue to be political, but You know, throughout the last several months, you have continued to, I'm not going to use the word attack, but state how Mr. Swindle has campaigned for his opponent. Mr. Swindle, Michael Swindle, is a citizen resident of Hendry County, just as you are. I don't believe he is violating his First Amendment right to campaign for someone that he supports. I don't see how what he does with your opponent is any different than what you did with my opponent, Mr. Baskin's opponent, and in the past, Mr. Brown's opponent. So all I'm asking is, can we put that to sleep? You both, as citizens, supported.
We will not. Well, we're gonna hash it out, but I appreciate your request. I don't have to deny it. Thank you.
Okay. That is all. I just wanted that. Superintendent, you have anything?
I do have two things. The first thing is I do want to reiterate what Mr. Simmerdike said, the half-cent sales tax, and as you'll notice, we somewhat strategically placed the banner behind us so that everyone can see that and we could get it on our social media feed tonight and everybody could see it. If you have that information, the emails, the video that we've been sending out, we ask you to please share that and contact everyone you know. It is a true educational platform that we're trying to get our community to be aware of, that it will have huge impacts for our school systems and our ability to make a positive impact on the educational lives of students for years to come. And so we would appreciate you all helping us in making sure that happens. The second one is a true walk-on item. I believe you have it in front of you, and it is the approval of a Toyota Sienna van. Do y'all all have that in front of you? So with that in mind, the whole backstory to it is, and you actually approved you approved back in the summer the replenishment of some of the fleet vehicles. They are aging, and it's been some time since we have replaced many of these vehicles for the fleet of the schools in the district to have. Mr. Lukenhaus had purchased 2 vans, and a third one was inadvertently ordered. And then when it came in, it wasn't our fault at all. And they called us and said we ordered 3 by accident. And so just so happens we are in huge need of one. And we also have no ability to get those. As you know, they're at least 6 months out before you can touch another one. And so even though it was not our mistake, we would like to take advantage of the opportunity to purchase the other one. And again, it was already approved on the plan that you approved back in the summertime to replenish the fleet. So the information is there in front of you as far as Sienna van, and it's already put out almost on a Sourcewell bid. Sourcewell does pre-negotiated bids for multiple things that we purchase, and basically ensures that we get the best possible rate on this particular product. So therefore, it does not have to be bid out to other manufacturers for that. So at this time, I would recommend that you approve the purchase of the Sienna van as presented in the walk-on item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Beeson and a second by Mr. Simmerdike. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Attorney Shadid?
Oh. Yeah, in your consent agenda, you have the confidential package. If you'll please make sure that we get those. Thank you.
Attorney Shadid?
Thank you, Chairwoman Nelson, members of the board, superintendent. There's no attorney's item.